Finding success in a screenwriting contest is a great way to know you're progressing as a writer, and many screenwriters gain some initial success as a result of a contest. But is there a way to improve your chances at placing in a contest? Amazingly, yes. And today we're getting into some of the hacks for screenwriting contests. There are several links below. Be sure to check those out because some of them may be of interest to you. Subscribe if you haven't. I really do appreciate it. Like if you find value. Let's jump in. Screenwriting contests are a great way to get some validation about how you're progressing as a screenwriter. And I did make a video about some of the better writing contests and some things to consider, which I'll link here. But what I didn't talk about in that video were some tips to increase your chances at placing in a contest. Now, I must be responsible. I'm a straight shooter, and I gotta tell you, there are no guarantees here. I mean, even if you do all those things, there's no guarantees you're gonna win a contest or whatever. This is gonna make a lot more sense as we talk through some of these factors that are at play, because there's a lot of factors at play in any contest, and each contest is kind of its own entity. However, these tips will definitely increase your chances of placing in a contest. And in an effort to be kind of comprehensive, I can't make an hour-long video. I guess I could, but I just can't. Some of these tips might seem kind of duh-ish, so if they are, I'm probably going to skip through them pretty quickly because they should hopefully make sense. But you'd be surprised at how many screenplays don't do the things I'm about to recommend. So I'm going to give you 10 tips and then a few bonus things to just help you out with contests. And we're starting off with a banger that'll probably get some of your hackles up. Number 1, do research. And you think, wait, that doesn't get my hackles up. Just hold on there, Skippy. Each contest likes different kinds of scripts, but many writers, many of us, we like writing a specific type of film. We like writing action or horror or psychological thriller scripts. And a few of you really like to write rom-coms, right? There's some of us thrown in the mix, and rightly so, because those are the 4 main story types that tend to get more play in Hollywood. The problem is most contests don't like those kinds of scripts. Those screenplays tend to be plot heavy and not character heavy, and not just any character heavy. And here's where you got to hold on to your shorts here, okay? I don't really care how you feel about this. I'm just speaking reality here. Characters dealing with gender identity issues, dealing with sexual identity issues, dealing with racial inequality issues, or dealing with whatever social justice issue is the hot button topic of the moment, those stories do better in contests. And I'm not saying this to belittle those kinds of stories, because stories like that are desperately needed and desperately needed to be told. People don't know how to love one another and how to respect one another for who they are without passing judgment for someone who looks different or someone identifies different. What I'm saying is that many of the bigger contests crave stories like that. And as a result, those kinds of stories tend to fare better in the bigger contests. Not always, but often. So while your story might be about a wannabe teenage spy who gets caught up in a conspiracy, that may have some really great character moments, right? There's lots of fun moments there, and it may be a really great story, but it doesn't stand a chance against a script about a lesbian janitor literally coming out of the closet and beginning an affair with the algebra teacher. The latter script, everything else being equal, let's say both scripts are equally good, that latter script wins every time, unless the competition is focused on spy thrillers, in which case the janitor doesn't stand a chance, even if she is stalking the algebra teacher in a Fatal Attraction kind of way. Please don't hear me saying these kinds of characters and stories are bad, because they're not bad, and that is not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to do your research on the contest to see what kinds of stories tend to fare better for that contest. I mean, if you want to have a better chance at placing in the contest, you got to know what kind of scripts win. So if you're trying to win the Nickel Fellowship, for example, and you've got an alien invasion movie, man, it better be so stinking good and Oscar worthy, or it's not going to get past the quarterfinals. I don't care how good it is. It's just not going to happen, not in the Nickel. And the Nickel quarterfinals, though, are nothing to sneeze at, and you might get there, but you're probably not going to win the contest with that script. So do your research and make sure you're entering the right script into the right contest. That leads to tip number 2. Number 2, match the script to the contest. Now, in a way, you want to think of contests like production companies. And some pods love spy thrillers. Like, some of them just really love spy thrillers. Some hate them with a vehement passion that can only be matched by my detestation of sour cream, which I can't stand. And just like you would only send certain scripts to certain pods, contests are exactly the same. But a lot of writers think, hey, I've got a good script, I'm just going to enter it into the nickel. Well, the nickel may be the way wrong contest for the script you've got. You've got to match the script to the contest if you want to have a chance at placing well. And coincidentally, if it's a contest that is sending you coverage on your script, you're actually going to get better coverage if your screenplay is more in line with what they might be looking for. You know, another thing to help you suss this out is to look at the list of published judges. Some contests publish who their judges are going to be. So if the judges all write or produce rom-coms and you have a horror screenplay, yeah, good luck on that. I mean, you want to match the script to the contest. Number 3, characters are paramount. You better be putting your main character through the ringer and back again throughout the script. If your character isn't going through a veritable crucible, okay, you're going to have a hard time placing. New writers tend to focus on plot and just coming up with an interesting character. But you have to take that character and wreck them again and again. Ideally, the character you have does one of 2 things. They either change and become the person they need to become and the person the audience hopes they will become by the end of the story, or 2, they need to reject everything and not change at all, leaving the audience with a taste in their mouth of sadness and bitterness. The result is the audience finishing your story wants to talk about all the character went through and how they finally changed, or they want to talk about all that stuff that the character went through and how the character didn't change and how sad that is. And either option is great for a contest, but you kind of need one or the other. As we continue pulling on this thread, you also want to amp up all of your characters. Each character should be memorable in their own right. Quirky, nuanced characters are great. And if the reader of your contest script feels that each character is not only unique to the story and the world you are creating, but feels unique and different from every other script they've already read that day, okay, you're going to start to get higher marks. Now, this doesn't mean that you create lots of quirky language or that every character has to be quirky and unique, but it does mean that someone can imagine an actor wanting to play that role because it's juicy and the character would be fun to play. That character, oh, they're going to be fun to play. Now, as a side note, this means that you also got to have great names for your main and supporting characters. Names like Bob, John, Sally, Jenny, yeah, those are no good. You need names like Hodge, and Maynard, and Zeke, and Evangelina, and Sabine, or Natalie. Okay, those are much, much better. The next tip might also ruffle some of you the wrong way, but your story has to be structurally sound. It's got to be structurally on point. It has to be an actual story. You need not only a main character and a solid story for them, you need subplots, you need twists, you need clever reveals, and all of them serve the story. A reader should be able to identify the beginning and ending of Act 2, especially if they're writing coverage. If they can't figure out where Act 2 begins, they're not even going to know what your story is about, and you've already got bigger problems. Your script's already done. They should be able to identify other key moments of the story too. But this gets to the next tip. While your story should be structurally sound, your story should also be unexpected and yet inevitable. In other words, when the reader is going through the story, okay, they're reading through, they should be surprised at how the story is unfolding. But when they reflect on it, they'll think, you know, everything was there that needed to be there. Everything felt just right. That's inevitable. Every scene, every beat, yes, should be unexpected. And it should feel at the same time like there's no other way, no possible other way for that story to unfold. And this gets into the storytelling aspect. So you have to have a solid story that's structured properly. Like, I've got to have all the necessary pieces for a story. Someone who wants something badly, they're having trouble getting it, they get it or they don't. I got to have that. But then you've also got to tell the story well. It's like, how are you going to tell that story? And the way you tell it should be unexpected and yet inevitable. Can you take out any scene, for example, and the story still makes sense? I mean, if you can take out a scene, your script isn't ready. If you can take out a whole subplot, your script isn't ready. Or what about this one? As you're reading, can you guess what the next scene 2 or 3 down the road are going to be? And if you can, well, you're not being unexpected. You're being predictable. And you don't want predictable. You want unpredictable. And yet, those next 2 or 3 scenes should feel just exactly right. That makes them inevitable. Another tip, follow the formatting rules to the letter. And this one is another one that also may rub you the wrong way. But when a contest has several thousand scripts, if the first few pages aren't formatted properly, yeah, you're done. The end. Too bad, so sad, call your dad. Do your best to be consistent and industry standard as much as possible. And definitely do that within the first 20 pages. But Jake, what if I have a non-standard thing? Well, if it's within the first 20 pages, do your best to find a way to do it standard. Write around it is another option, right? Write it a little different. You're a writer, so write it in a different way that's clear and follows convention. But later in the story, once the reader is invested and you want to do something not so standard, as long as you're consistent and you have a reason for doing it that the reader understands, you should be okay. The thing is, early readers for contests are usually given some parameters to follow, and if a script doesn't follow format, that's usually one of them. If it doesn't follow format, it's usually automatically kicked. So you gotta follow the format. And just like the format, your grammar has to be spot on. Yeah, you gotta have solid grammar. Now, mostly this is related to spelling, because sentence run-ons, sentence fragments, those are usually okay, especially in dialogue, but spell things correctly. Make sure you have commas if there's supposed to be a comma there, and periods where there's supposed to be a period, right? End of sentence punctuation when you need it. If you have a misspelling on the first 5 pages, there's a misspelling, you're done. Things like it's and it's, or which and which, whether and whether, and all those other ones like that, yeah, you can't mess those up. You want to make sure your grammar is spot on. And one other thing that's related to grammar is consider your use of numbers. In description or action, you can write numbers as numbers, 23, 47, 96, whatever it is. But in dialogue, you want to write them out as a word and how they'd be spoken. I mean, how's an actor supposed to say this? 2021, 2021, 2021? Write out numbers in dialogue so that the dialogue is said exactly how you want it to be said. If you just write the numbers, can't do it. Also, if it's a long string of numbers, it's going to impact spacing on the page. It's going to impact your length. You got to write it out in the dialogue. Next, lots of white space, especially in the first 20 pages. I mean, you want the reader to be on page 23 before they realize what's just happened. All of a sudden they think they're reading this awesome script and they're totally into it because they're on page 23. They just started. Now, this doesn't mean that you fudge the margins, right? You don't do that. You stick with standard margins. Standard formatting applies. This also means you do not have large blocks of description, though. You don't want big chunks of description. You want to keep things moving. Keep it breezy. This doesn't mean you need a chase or a fight scene at the beginning either. Compelling characters who are after something where we care about what happens to them, that pulls us in. So make it breezy, lots of white space, preferably throughout the whole script, but definitely in the first 20 pages. And then the last tip before I get into a couple of other kind of bonus things. So tip number 10, keep your story on the shorter end. Shorter scripts tend to fare better in contests. And that means you want to land in the 90 to 100 page range for your screenplay. 105 is okay, 106, starting not to be. That, and keep it breezy. I mean, you want the reader to just fly through your script. Think it's awesome, have a great character turn, you've got interesting characters throughout, all with great names, all the stuff we've talked about, and you do it all and you land right around 100 pages. So your target is not really a 120 page script, your target is a 105 page script. 97 to 103 tends to be a better target. And the reason for this is one of impression that the reader is going to have. If your script is long, it's a no, because now they're going to dread reading it. They're already approaching your script with like, oh, it's a long one. If it's on the shorter end and there's lots of white space, they're looking forward to reading your script. They're like, oh, this is kind of breezy. This might be pretty good. And then it actually is good. Now you're doing really well. And there's a few other tips that I do want to give you, more of the kind of like thinking on a macro level about contests, but I would really appreciate it if you're finding value, interact in some way. Like if you haven't, hit that subscribe button, the bell, you want to be notified, leave a comment, interact in some way. If there's some other tips you know that have helped you, if you've placed in contests, drop them below, help other people out. Okay, a few more quick things. One, read scripts from past winners of the contest that you want to enter, if you can. Usually, not always, but usually the winning scripts are posted online somewhere, at least for a short time. Every contest is different, but if you can find scripts from past winners, you're going to get a clear sense of what type of story would fare well at that specific contest. But Jake, are you saying to write scripts specifically for contests? Well, yes and no. I mean, it's more of a submit scripts that match the contest kind of thing, just like you would submit scripts that match production companies. The other thing to consider here is if you write a script that follows all these guidelines, right? That's a solid script you can show as a writing sample, or maybe even later submit to production companies, even if you don't place in the contest. So it's not that, yeah, you should kind of write a script toward a contest if you're wanting to win that contest and for very specific reasons, but chances are you're going to have a solid script. You might be able to enter it in a couple of other contests, but you're probably at least going to be able to also show it around. So it's not that you're writing just for that one thing and that's it and you're done, but you do really want to be considering the contest. So read scripts, read winning scripts. That's not only going to help you as a writer, reading scripts is always good. It's also just going to help you know which of your scripts might be good to submit to a specific contest. Another kind of broad goal or tip is have a clear goal for entering the contest. I mean, maybe you're entering because you just want feedback. Perfectly valid reason. Maybe you're entering because you want to win the cash prize or the software prize or whatever other prize there is. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to a lot of contests. So don't just think that if I win this contest, I'm going to be able to get a meeting with an agent and that's going to start my career. Well, that might happen, but what's the goal for you entering that contest? I mean, if you're wanting to get your script in front of an agent, there's lots of ways to do that. Contests aren't the only route. So have a clear goal for why you're wanting to enter the contest. You know, I mentioned in another video that one contest I won, I literally entered because I needed a new laptop and I wanted the cash prize to buy it. I mean, plus it was just a fun contest where I could write about a kid who wanted to be a spy. He found out his neighbor used to be a spy. It was a great fun script. I won that contest, bought the computer. I got a few industry meetings out of it, which was great, but I needed a computer. So have a clear goal. And one last kind of big picture tip is manage your expectations. Now, contests are a great way for writers to be discovered, but it's not as common as you might think. I mean, yes, most professional writers have at one time entered and placed in a contest or two, but not all of them. And winning a contest doesn't mean that someone's going to buy your script. It also doesn't mean you're necessarily going to have a successful career. It's not a one-to-one correlation. So just manage the expectations you have. I mean, be surprised by what happens as a result of placing high in a contest instead of disappointed you didn't end up with an agent or whatever you have as your goal. Contests are great at validating you are writing solid stories and telling them well enough that you can start to play in the professional league. They are definitely a way in, but they're not the only way. So, you know, don't buy that sports car before you sell a script kind of a thing. Keep a level head, manage your expectations. This business has a lot of ups and downs, and you don't want to be riding a roller coaster your whole career. That's exhausting. Just keep working, keep at it. You will get there. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. If it has, please be sure to like, subscribe, bell, all those things. I really do appreciate it. There's links below. Again, some of those might be of interest to you. Be sure to check those out. When you go to tell that story, whether you're writing a story for a contest or not, tell a story that matters. See you later.